What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. I'm sure all of you guys are having a great day so far. Right now, Bitcoin up over 3%. We're crossing that 97,000 mark. Finally got a breakout of that 95,000 resistance. We're going to be taking a look into why this looks like a solid breakout and why the market could be going wild pretty soon. We're going to be taking a look into Stellar, Lumens as well, XLM, see if we can find any patterns before it actually moves again, okay? Because that's what we do on this channel. What I do here on the daily basis is that I find chart patterns for crypto or any markets before they move. Because let's face it, that's a lot less riskier than chasing a pumping green candle. If you guys have actually chased any pumping green candles, which I'm sure you guys have, because it's very tempting, I have done it many times, finally learned my lesson, and when I switched to actually lower risk setups, that's when I became a lot more profitable. Now, if you guys do have any technical analysis requests for any markets, any coin, make sure to drop a comment in the comment section below. Of course, like and subscribe because I'll be bringing you guys daily ideas on setups that have not yet moved. Now, we're going to take a look here into Bitcoin, okay? Very important on the daily time frame. I talked about this, okay? We still had a higher low on the daily time frame, okay? As of yesterday, we still had a higher low. So when you have a higher low, what to expect is a higher high, okay? That is basically what we're getting right now. On the RSI here, it could invalidate this bearish divergence here, okay? Because look where we're at right now. We're at about a reading of 70. And to beat this, to invalidate this bearish divergence, I'm looking for, it's basically invalidated, okay? I'm looking at this, a higher high here comparing with this high. We're basically, we already have this in the bag, right? Of course, if it closes this way, okay, we got about 8 hours, right? But it's looking pretty solid as of right now. We're still looking, very good on the Bitcoin chart here because we're still very much above the daily 200. Okay, when you're above the daily 200, it is the definition of a bull market. And we have broken above that quite a few days ago. 3-day time frame. Okay, very important here as well because we talked about this double bottom for the last couple of weeks. Took some time to play out, okay? It does take time to play out depending on what time frame you're looking at, right? Double bottom here, it was at about 89,000. Breakout target is going to be about 104,000. Now that is give or take, right? It's still a good idea to get an estimate of where price action could be going. Okay, now if Bitcoin actually breaks above 104k, the next resistance is basically the previous all-time high at about 110,000. Okay, if we break out of that 110,000, let's just say hypothetically, right, then we could be looking at a price target of 45,000. Now that is give or take, right? I mean, FOMO could come in, but it's still good to get an idea, right? Now where am I pulling that 104,000 possible price target coming from? Okay, it's still hypothetical, not established, right? It's because it could come up here, form some type of cup and handle, right? We already have a rounded bottom that is basically a form of a cup and handle, right? If you guys actually look at charts enough, you guys can train your eyes to see some of these very common but powerful patterns. And cup and handle is one of them, right? When it comes to a bull market. And basically, you would take a measurement for the price target. You would take a measurement of the opening of the pattern, which is from top to bottom, about 110, down to about 75,000. That's, a difference of, what is that? Like 35,000. and then you put it back on top of the cup, which will give you 145,000. Okay, now that is still an estimate. Let's take a look into hourly time frame. Okay, we have some weakness on the shorter time frames because we're seeing it on the RSI. Okay, that is bearish divergence. I am looking for a quick scalp here. Okay, with a leverage trade. That's not recommended for anyone who is new. I mean, it's don't do it if you're new. That's just that's it's not financial advice, but right, it's gonna be very risky. Okay, and if you guys have had some experience trading and some experience in leverage trading, then you guys will probably know better of what I mean. I'm looking for a possible scalp. I don't like entering on pumping green candles, especially with bearish divergence. I do see some weakness on the shorter time frames, but on the daily time frame, it still looks good, right? Let's go back to the 3-day time frame and the weekly time frame as well. So very important on the 3-day time frame is that we are actually getting a pretty, it looks like a pretty solid candle above the 3-day 50 SMA now. Okay, the white line here at about 93,000. Okay, we've been there for the past quite a few days. Okay, so this is also significant in its own way. Weekly candle also something to be paying attention to, because you want to see a solid weekly candle above the weekly 21 SMA. Also was previous resistance at about 93,000. Let's come over here to Ethereum. Okay, Ethereum still lagging behind. We haven't had any major moves coming out of Ethereum, but this is what I am looking out for. It looks like we have broken out of that falling wedge pattern that has formed since the end of January. Price target is going to be about 2,900. Daily 200 still pretty far away from the price action right now at about 2,700. The orange line. Okay, right now it is barely getting above the daily 50 SMA. Okay, something to be keeping an eye out on. Let's see if we have any short-term patterns that we can actually look into. So this looks like a double bottom here, right? Out of that breakdown from that bear flag, right? So let's see if I can actually see a clear double bottom on a shorter time frame. 6 hour. 3 hour. All right, if I can't see a double bottom, then I can't really comment on it. So let's just leave it at that. What's more important is that we are above the daily 50 SMA, right? And see if we can actually get a solid candle close above it. But if Bitcoin actually holds the daily 200, I don't see why not. I don't see why not the altcoins are able to catch up, because everything follows Bitcoin in this market, at least in the longer term. Okay, now let's take a look into Total 3, which is basically altcoin market excluding Ethereum. Very much above the daily 50 SMA, very close to the daily 200 SMA at about almost 855 billion, right? Price target out of this very similar chart, falling wedge, is going to be about 100, just right underneath 1.1 trillion here, which could do some amazing pumps for these smaller altcoins, as I'm sure you guys have already seen for the past couple of days. Okay. All right, let's come over here to ES1 exclamation mark, which is S&P 500 mini futures, opens Sunday afternoon Pacific Standard Time. Very important to be keeping an eye out on this as well, because it's very highly correlated with Bitcoin, right? So it can serve as a front-running signal for Bitcoin, okay, which affects the crypto markets. Now, we do have daily 200 coming up for S&P 500, currently at about 5,800. It did break out of this falling wedge pattern. Very common. Train your eyes to see this. Price target out of this pattern is going to be about 5,800. Okay. Now, let's take a look into Stellar. see what's going on with Stellar here, okay? Since the last time I have actually looked into this for one of my subscribers. Alright, let's take a look into Stellar, see what is going on with this coin right now, since the last time we have actually touched bases. Alright, so, alright, this was the chart, okay? This was the chart. Weekly time frame, Stellar Lumens, XLM, USD. Weekly time frame, falling wedge pattern, it is huge, okay? Price target out of this pattern is going to be about 62 cents. Okay, so that is still quite a bit of a move, right? Let's take a look into the daily time frame, see if we can get any hint on what could be happening. It looks like it's trying to break out of this top trend line, right? Daily 200 at about 31 cents, okay? So that is basically what I'm looking at for Stellar. Just long story short, right? Let's take a look into maybe even a smaller time frame and see if we can get any idea of what could be happening. Alright, this looks like a falling wedge pattern on the 4-hour time frame. Just broke out of this falling wedge pattern. Short target here. Let's see if we can get a short target here for a 4-hour time frame. Alright, it's going to be about 29 cents out of the smaller pattern, which is a small target, right? So that is basically what I'm looking at from a higher time frame down to even the 4-hour time frame, okay? Let's see if we see any weakness on the daily time frame. I don't think so. I mean, it's not even in overbought territory, but do you definitely look out for divergence, okay? Let's take a look into some top 100 crypto. See if we can find any moves here. I'm going to be doing this with you guys live and see if we can find any moves, right? Let's check Ethereum Classic. All right. Ethereum Classic. Okay, I talked about this. I'm not sure. Yeah, I talked about this. Let's see if we can get a time frame with 3 connecting wicks here. I do like seeing 3 candle wicks on the trend line, so I can actually validate the trend line technically. Okay, on the 12-hour, yes, I can get 3 candle wicks touching a trend line. That's how you validate a trend line. You need 3 candle wicks on a time frame. Now let's take a look into the target here. It's gonna be about $30, right, for Ethereum Classic. Pretty big coin, right? I mean, pretty big in terms of market cap. So it's not gonna move as hard as some of the smaller market caps, right? Now let's see if we can find any potential moves out of Ethereum Classic here. It looks like it has actually broken down from a bear flag, right? Which is basically the upside down version of a bull flag. Or, this is a rising channel, right? Which is basically a rising wedge. It's about the same thing to me, okay? Double bottomed here, okay? It doesn't have to be a perfect equal bottom, but this is still a double bottom. And looks like it's trying to actually form some type of a rounded bottom before it moves higher. Of course, it still depends on Bitcoin. Okay, if Bitcoin dumps, none of these altcoin setups matter, at least in the longer term, right? All right, let's take a look into Dogecoin. We'll just have it here handy, okay? Dogecoin still at the bottom of this falling wedge pattern, okay? Price target if it actually breaks out by next week. That's not looking as likely. I mean, it could do something crazy, but I'm just gonna have it there. because I have to pick out estimated breakout points. Measure target is going to be about just a little bit above 50 cents here for Dogecoin if it breaks out by next week. If it doesn't, move the measurement down along the top trend line and get your target there if the pattern is still intact. Of course, it could still break down, but falling wedges typically breaks the upside. Let's look at a few more here. We still have some time. Let's do some that we haven't done before. Caspa. See what could be happening with Caspa. All right. Now this thing looks like it has actually broken down from a falling wedge pattern. It could happen, right? But this one actually looks like a bear trap because after it has actually broken down from the falling wedge pattern, it double bottomed, right? Clear double bottom with divergence on the RSI. Very simple but powerful indicator. Broke back into the pattern. Okay, so it basically invalidated that pattern, but it tells me that this was a bear trap. Delete it. All right, let's see what. So it could be. So what this could be doing is actually, it could be forming some type of a rounded bottom, right? Let's see if on the smaller time frame, if we can actually see any clear patterns here. On the daily time frame here, I mean, it could be a smaller rounded bottom, but no clear pattern here. But it could be hitting resistance at about 11.5 cents, right? And form some type of cup and handle and take a measurement there. But right now it is not established. Shorter time frame. Yeah, this doesn't look like any kind of established pattern here because there's rounded bottoms, which is good, right? That is still bullish. So let's follow up on this next time, okay? Let's do one more. I think we have time for one more, right? Let's go ahead and take Solana. Weekly time frame. A lot more likely to find a pattern here. It doesn't look like a pattern here though. Let me see on the 3-day time frame here. Right, this is what you want to train your eyes to do. Just be able to draw trend lines and connect a pattern. If you guys do it enough, you would be able to do it on a reflex. So this was a breakout, right, out of a falling wedge pattern. Now, some possible ways to trade these patterns, right, just to consider, not financial advice. And what I personally do is I look for, as close to the bottom of the pattern as possible. I think that's probably the lowest risk, right? Even when it breaks down, right? That's still my opinion. The lowest risk is to find as close to the bottom of the pattern as possible before it breaks out. Sure, you could trade breakouts. I mean, I started it trading breakouts, and it's fun, it's exciting, but it's more risky, right? Because let's just say if you traded this breakout here, you would have gotten at this breakout point, let's just say, and then it went up to it went up for a little while. However, it just completely dumped, right? This is still a valid breakout of a falling wedge pattern because it's still above this top trend line, but you would actually have to endure that dump, right? If depending on how you guys manage your positions and how you guys take profit and losses, because the entry point is important, but how you manage the position is also important as well. Where you're going to be taking profits, where you're going to be cutting your losses. Okay, so if you get a good entry point, that's going to give you a huge lead, but it's still how you manage it afterwards. All right, now let's take a price target out of this Solana breakout. It's going to be about $245. Now, that wraps it up for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a beautiful day.